Then we can ditch that and put that on there. See, that kind of almost clips into it, but then get my reaction wheels. Just needs a little lid on that now. I mean, it's pretty compact now. Well, she's the offset to tie things up and condense things. Yeah, I've been doing, but it's whether I can be bothered, like, pixel lining things up. Like, you know, that bar is ever so slightly... You know what I mean? Like, there's just a tiny bit. Alright, that's not so bad. Wouldn't mind a little cover on this thing. I don't know if it can do anything. What's that? Pylon. Pylon! That's big.
Good afternoon, Paul. Hope you and the family are well. Are we going to impress Elon more? Capital.
Dude's already watching on the slime, telling you. A joint socket. It's something like that, but not as big. Foldable solar panels. We don't really need them though. That's what these are. I do know that. By the way. Parachute. Why do we need a parachute, bro? Oh, you mean put a parachute on the end? Oh, if that's all we can find. I just want like a tiny structural empty thing that just caps the end off. Clampatron docking port, there you go. How about that? Put a docking port on it, because you never know. There, and now you can physically dock. You can now physically dock to it in case you want to move it. I mean, it's not a terrible idea. It means you could dock to it and refuel it, or take the fuel out of it, you know. Reserved for future use. Right, we need some kind of separator. Coupling. What's going to be the coupling size for this? T18 maybe? What is that? Decoupler, stack separator. I think we just want a decoupler. I'm a bit worried about that. It's not done anything. It's not put the fairing up on it, has it? Here's the big problem. If we want to put this in line in a rocket, how's that going to work? Because there's nothing up here to attach to. How can you possibly inline this? Thank you, 40. Didn't think about that when we moved everything around. There's no ability to clamp at the top here. That is a big problem. Well, yeah, ideally you want it to go in a cargo bay. I don't think we're going to fit this in a cargo bay on the Brighton or the Manchester. Looks a bit wide. If this section folded, maybe. Maybe. Do we even have like a cargo bay? Science bay, service bay, service bay. Split it in two, take up an orbit, reassemble, and ship it to the moon. The problem still stands though, doesn't it? Like, we either put this thing in a bay, or we need an inline connector. Use a docking port to hold it in the cargo bay. We don't have a cargo bay. We need a way of doing it in line. This thing, if that wasn't there, we can have an inline connector here. So in a way, this can't stay there. This needs to move, really. That's the bottom line here. And then it needs to be able to open out like that because it's massive. Possibly stick it in place of that panel array. Just put it on one side. Extending panels attached directly without the scaffold may work to reduce the width. We could indeed send it up on its own rocket. You know, maybe that's the way we're going to have to go anyway. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason we can't just send this up on its own rocket. We have a aerodynamics. It's on Steam, this game. Where's the piece that we need for the fairing? Protective air shell stream 3.75. It's massive. 2.5. I find it weird how that just floats there. Like how does that work? How can that just float like that? Right, it connects when you do a smaller one. TD60 coupler, for example, that it's happier with that. You have a TD60 coupler. And what if you then marry that to one of these things? There you go. So now you just need a lifter for that. Put that into orbit around the moon. Job done. So the problem now is if you bring in the Brighton lifter, Wait, can that whole component now be dragged as a sub-assembly? Oh, you stupid thing. Can that be dragged there? Not attachable. See, why is that not attachable? Is it because of the root node? I bet it's because of the root node, isn't it? I bet it requires the root node to be a connector. If I save that, get rid of that a second. Selected part is not attachable, I knew it. You dragged the lifter in, not the ship out, I believe. You reckon? Let me open up 1 second. Slow to brighten 5 in a sec. Because this is like the transfer rocket you still need. You still need a transfer rocket to get to the moon. So if you now... Trouble is, this is like a lander as well. You can reroute the ship to whichever parts using the buttons near the top left. Yeah, you can. You click on that, don't you? And it lets you reroute it. I think it is something like that. You need to reroute it. It has a coupler. That's the thing. It does have... Well, it has a separator. Or maybe that's what it needs. Maybe it needs the... Yeah, we put a coupler on it, didn't we? But it was on the side. Maybe that's all it needs. Brighton 4. Brighton 4 might be more appropriate. You've got your lifter. Let's replace the top section. So that's the landing stage, isn't it? Liquid fuel engine. So instead of having that, we have that, is what I'm thinking. It's something like that, Elsinore. I have done it. Like if you get rid of that, you end up with... This is the problem you end up with. You end up with this, like there's no root component now. And so it won't let you move the camera. So then you have to bring in some kind of a root component. Which, you know, it calls a pod. So if you bring like that in, then you can move the camera again. So you got to somehow convince the game that... Because if you try and drag that in to the sub-assembly, it'll let you do it. And it'll let you do it because the root was this, I think. But how do I not have that? How do I not have the pod? Propidyne Octo, maybe that's the way to go. Maybe like get rid of that. Bring that in. Move from the root components and drag that. Take everything except the root. Oh, I see. So if I have that, so if I now take the decoupler, go, take that decoupler and drag it into here, and then what do we call that? Let's call it the Manchester lifter. Save. And then don't save that. Open up the old Squirrel Survey satellite and bring in the Manchester lifter. Job done. So the Manchester lifter contains a transfer stage, I think. There's a transfer stage. I don't think that it'll be enough fuel to push that over. The Brighton lifter is the right size, but doesn't contain the transfer stage. Have you seen SAT scan mod for KSP? No. I don't think so on Capping Badger. It needs some kind of transfer stage on it. I'm sure of it. That's a decoupler. Seems weird doing that, doesn't it? Seems very weird doing that. Fuel tanks. Don't know how much we'll need to transfer over. Engines. Maybe a poodle or a terrier, I'm not sure. Let's try the old terrier engine. That's in the wrong place now. Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, you know, it might just work. Delete the phone off that for now. Let's see what we got left. Structural tube, don't know why we have that. Oh, that's to create the gap for the shell, which we don't necessarily need on this build. So I think that could probably go. Decoupler. Seems to have two lots of protective shell going on. This looks positively weird. Very least we need an adapter. A12 fuel tank adapter. Is it that one? Isn't that the point of Kerbal? Yeah, quite possibly. Right, so you've got this, and then let's just go through this and see what happens. Right, you've got your main engines, blah, 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 separator of the SRBs. Then you've got that separator, which I would argue is wrong, because you probably need... You probably want to jettison the fairing. At some point, maybe on its own. So you're in the upper atmosphere, you jettison the fairing, and then you separate to get your upper engine transfer stage going. Circularize, transfer over, and then when you're ready, you separate that. The only thing is we can't deorbit the transfer stage because we have no control unless we put some kind of control in to here. The remote guidance unit maybe. There's the adapter. Where's the separator there? Yeah, so then that allows us to carry on and deorbit that. Smash it into the moon. Well, that's there. So disconnect. Final engine stage. Right, so the question is, do we have enough Delta V? Oh yeah, batteries. Yeah, you want some kind of battery on this thing. Has it not got a battery built in? Electric charge 15. It's not a lot. I reckon we just slap a solar panel on it. Just to keep it topped off. Just to make sure that stays topped off. I don't like doing that, Costa. I like having separate control on the fairing. Right, unless you mean that bit. Mr. Sun, thank you, 25 months. Right, so have a look at stage 4, 1.8. That's more than enough. Stage 3, which is that. Stage 2 is a transfer stage. That one, stage 1. 1400 Delta V. That should be enough to get us to the moon, I think. We need 860 for an intercept, 310 to put us into orbit, so that should be fine. Alright, that's good. The only problem is the name of this now. The name has been adopted. It's probably right now. There you go. I'll be ready to test this bad boy. Well, we'll find out, Mr. Battle Cattle. We shall find out. This is meant to be a polar orbit on the moon. We don't even know if the satellite works yet. Let's get us into a 90k orbit and see what happens. Some chunky fairing, that is. There's nobody on board. This is a completely unmanned craft. We're not going to put a Kerbal into a unmanned orbit around the moon. Max Q. Throttling back up. SRBs are nearly done. That's true, Veltiel. Not yet. We've already got rid of Jeb and his accomplice for now. Stage separation. Confirmed. Coasting to the edge of the atmosphere. Jeb and Bill, that was a Jeb and Bill who just permanently tried to take over any mission. Looks pretty cool right now, doesn't it? Look at that. I've actually got an awful lot of fuel left. I think there's way too much fuel here. Could have got rid of a couple of these, I reckon. We're going to have a lot of fuel left over. Like, way too much. This thing is not that heavy. It's going to take 1,000 Delta V. We've still got 2,000. I think we'll probably redo it and just get rid of a couple of these tanks. We just don't need this much fuel. Better for a bigger explosion. Lol. That's really weird the way they drain uniformly. Look at that. See, it's managed to circularize with over 1,000 Delta V left, and that's supposed to be the transfer stage doing all that. It's nuts. Bandita, thank you for 45 months. Are the mods up today? In Kerbal, I only put them in last week, yeah. I haven't added any more. You see, the problem is, the SRBs are that long that there's not a lot you can do. The thing you can do is drain fuel. He's wondering if KSP will introduce SpaceX type landings for boosters. It's the code behind it's the tricky bit. How much Delta V does it have? Let's put the fuel back in. So 2,400, we had about 1,000 too much, didn't we? At least 1,000 too much. 2,600. But what? Wait, so if I take fuel out, I go from having 2,400 Delta V, I take a load of fuel out, and I have 2,600 Delta V. Jack and Oren, thank you for 13 months. Yeah, the weight, so I mean, it's just like the weight reduction is just nuts. It's just crazy how that works, though. Now I go down to 2,800 Delta V. I think we just need to get rid of some SRBs. That's like maybe just have two SRBs on this rocket. It's not a heavy lifter. Yeah, the SRBs are insane. Exactly. Let's take that off for a second. Let's put these back. Come on, what pixel do I need to click? There we go. So if I have two of them, and fill up the tanks. Now we don't have enough thrust to weight ratio. Which I don't think everything's correct anymore. There we go, 2,100. Even that's a lot. Because it was on 2,600, wasn't we? $2,400 without that. Hey, how can the delta V just keep going up? There's got to come a point where... oh, finally it's coming down. God. Maybe we just don't need SRBs. Maybe that's it. But then I don't think we have enough thrust to weight ratio. Atmospheric button. 2,000. Maybe. 2,200 without fuel. We like literally keep getting more delta V as I remove fuel. This is crazy how this works. Look. Yeah, I think maybe, yeah, we're just going to need some smaller boosters. These are the kickback solid booster, aren't they? Let's find something a bit smaller. That's the shrimp, thoroughbred, thumper. That's the kickback. It's quite big, isn't it, the kickback? So that gave us 1.72 thrust to weight ratio and only 887 delta V now. Okay. Can they be stacked? Do we know if the moon's made of cheese, Hannah? We wish it was made of cheese. Thumper, 1700. There's 1500 kilonewtons, 250 kilonewtons. See, all of these are just ginormous, aren't they? Those SRBs are just way too... I need an extension to these, that's what I need. The alternative is we go with that kind of approach. And that gives us an insane amount of delta V. This rocket is getting smaller. 2,596. Separate those engines, give you stage 3, then you only get 700. Not having any. Yeah, we can. This is what I was thinking about, putting fuel between them. I don't know, I just feel like tiny little shrimp boosters. This looks so out of place. The thoroughbred. I mean, that's just massive. Even the thumpers are massive. Thousand delta V, SRB separation. That gets off the pad. 2,200. Let's go with that. I think that might work. It might still be too much fuel, but we'll see. I gotta put a cap on that. Nose cone. There we go. We shall see. Dan Brown, thank you for 54 months. New sub badges, new sub badge. Nice. Nice, Dan. Keep up the great content. Thank you. Let's give it a whirl. Let's see what happens. Right, we've got main engine, we've got separation, we've then got fairing, engine, final engine, save, launch. Let's see what happens. Might have to detune some fuel, maybe. It's a bit shaky. I probably should have strapped the SRBs in just to give it some more rigidity. We'll see how it gets on. SRBs are doing most of the work right now. So you want to get to like just before the point where you stop burning and wait for the apo. That's when you want to be running out of fuel. So we'll see how we get on fuel. We've still got a lot of fuel. If they die, they come back. Yeah, they come back 2 hours later, though. So I've already got an Apo 37. Too much fuel again. Long time ago, the racer, yeah. Did videos on it years ago, the racer. I still think it's got one of the worst names ever. Right, so maybe... Well, I just let it click then. Maybe we'll run out of fuel before we circularize, which will be fine, but we'll see. For the long term, though, don't you want to be shipping fuel to orbit? Yeah, but I'm trying to make a rocket that's, like, tuned. Like, this rocket is designed to put a probe around the moon, right? So if we just go up there and have, like, 6,000 litres of fuel left, that's not a very well-optimized rocket. So I'm trying to get it optimized. But we still have a chunk of fuel left, but we've not circularized yet. So my hope is before this becomes a circular orbit, that runs out of fuel, and then it'll detach and go back to Kerbal. We need to save the space dolphins. We do. We don't want to pollute any space dolphins. Okay, this looks like it could be a winner. It might just get circular too early, though. It's close. It's so close. Look at that. About now would be perfect. Ah, scumbag. Scumbag. We just need to get rid of a small tank and we'll be good, I think. I think that's a small tank though, isn't it? If we move these down a little bit. There. Just get rid of that. And with a bit of luck, that will be what we're looking for. That's stability, save, launch. A teacup. It was a bit more than a teacup. About 800 teacups, but yeah. And the game just crashed. It couldn't take my awesome build. It literally went to launch and went, nope. Have I seen the size of your teacups? Did they look like that, Hannah? Invisible teacups. Hey, Armin, how you doing? I love that rocket with the arm picking up the rover. That looks so cool. Mods, I think we need to change that specs command. The last bit there, squirrel is settling in horizon. Like, I think that probably needs removing. If you could chuck it into memos, I'll fix it. A pint of tea, Hannah. The only problem with a pint of tea is how many trips to the bathroom you're going to need. It's true, XCon, you take fuel out and it doesn't always, you know. Tom Fland, there's many places on Twitch that are not moderated properly. And all that ends up happening is you end up with a lot of chat flying past. Nobody can get a word in edgeways. The streamer doesn't pay any attention to the chat. And it's like watching TV, but you can all just post random messages. It's all a bit meh. Right, the Squirrel Survey Satellite autosave. Nope. The Squirrel Survey Satellite. Do you reckon that's it? There's the struts, looks good. Yeah, I mean, it gets to a point where some of the big channels, like, they can't read the chat anymore, which is really a bit sad, really. But equally, you know, I've watched streams that are not moderated, like, I don't know, even things like chess, and it's just full of endless spam, and the streamer doesn't do anything about it. It's like, what are you doing? Well, Navarine, I've always tried to pay attention to chat. Occasionally been accused of ignoring chat by some people, which usually is when they've got a bit butthurt because I didn't read their message out. But by and large, I read most messages, if not all of them. Unless I'm like focused on something. If I focus on something, I don't always read it. It turns out into a concert-like stream, people just being in a wave. Yeah, kind of. Except in a concert, people generally like singing along or dancing in their own world. In a stream chat like that, they tend to just post. Somebody will post some ASCII art, somebody will post some copy and paste spam, which is just very repetitive, and then other people copy that and paste it, and everybody just repastes the same thing. And it just ends up as this big repetitive mess. It's almost like, I don't know, they've lost their mind. What year did you start streaming? I think the first year I streamed properly was 2012. But that wasn't on Twitch, because Twitch didn't exist then. It was like Justin TV and Owned and that kind of thing. Usually ignore us kids. Amazed you've read about 3 of mine so far tonight and even noticed the command about the specs, Hannah. I don't know. I'm obviously awake, Hannah. Usually half asleep. I think we're going to get the same problem again. Guitarman, thank you for 8 months. Thank you. You accidentally locked one of the members of staff in the storeroom today. Well, if it was that boss that you don't like, Hannah, then, you know, you could have lost the keys for a little while. If it's somebody that you like, that's a different story. Oh, look at that. Circular at the wrong... I reckon one more go, we'll get it. You just got back from the market. Some bloke got angry and threw a jar of jelly at the wall. Dear me. What did the jelly ever do to him, eh? There's not, Joman, there's not much point in having boosters if you're not going to fill them up, though, is there? I'd rather get rid of fuel stages. That doesn't seem right. Why are we oriented very strangely all of a sudden? What the? Why is it just randomly rotating the thing? Weird. At least throw some ice cream as well to complete the pudding, yeah? Yeah, there's a jar of jelly. And here's a can of whipped cream. And here's a spoon. That's how angry I am. Go and enjoy your dessert. What random behavior is that? I mean, with these adults, you expect kids to throw tantrums, but you don't expect an adult to do that. That's insane. I don't like sherry trifle, Zarek. Honestly, I hate it. I love jelly and I love trifle, but I do not like sherry trifles. In actual fact, I don't like alcohol in food in general. Like, I remember being a kid. I think this is maybe where it comes from. When I was a kid, and at Christmas we'd get like boxes of chocolates, and sometimes my mum would get liqueur chocolates, you know what I mean? The ones with whiskey in them or brandy in them and all this kind of thing. And every time I accidentally had one of those, I thought it was a normal chocolate and I bit into it and I was like, ugh. Can't stand it. I think that's where my distaste for alcohol and chocolate came from. So I just don't like sherry trifles. I'd rather just have a trifle. The only thing I can deal with is a Christmas pie, Christmas pudding. Because Christmas pudding has sherry in it or cognac or something. And I'm okay with that. You love boozy fudge. You see, from my mind, you might as well just have fudge and then a glass of whiskey or something. Like, why do you need to combine the two things? Yeah, brandy. I've not had brandy for years. Right, let's see how much Delta V we have. We've got 1,000 Delta V left. The burn takes 1,200, which basically means we're going to separate before we fully circularize this time. Which should mean the lower stage falls back to Kerbal. Which is exactly what we wanted. Which means it can proceed onwards to the moon. Separation. There we go. Lovely jubbly. Nice. So that'll fall back. And let's see if we've got enough Delta V to do the moon transfer now. If not, we might have to put some more fuel in the upper stage. There we go. Right. Moon. Yeah, that was perfect unless we need to add fuel to the upper stage, in which case it'll knock out the lower stage. So it's all a balancing act. Change one thing, you have to change the other. Let's see, maneuver. That's an 855 delta V, which should leave us enough delta V to circularize. Yeah, I think we should be good. Of course, we do want to deorbit that thing into the moon. So we don't want to fully circularize. We'll let the probe fully circularize. But we can probably get it over there and like use the delta V to shift into a polar orbit. And then we can keep all the fuel on the probe. Might work quite well. To the moon. What altitude did we say was going for the probe? 25k minimum, wasn't it? So maybe go 30k just to be safe. Because I think the minimum's 25 for the scanner. Why didn't Elon Musk contact you? How do you know he's not? How do you know he's not contacted me, but I've had to sign an NDA? And therefore I can't say whether or not he's contacted me. Just saying, you know. A what? What's an NFT? Maybe this is just a simulation for the next SpaceX. If your family all have Teslas turn up, confirmed. Exactly. If I suddenly change my cars to Teslas, you know there's been shenanigans. Heyman, thank you, 52 months. Why does it look like we're going to the sun right now? We're smart enough to know that Elon has not contacted you. If I'm under NDA, I can't say. I can't confirm or deny. Everything's just a rumor. Heyman, thank you, 52. "41 months of great streams, Astro Steve. Thank you. An all-black Model X. That's when you know Paul signed a contract with Musk. An all-black Model X. NFT is a non-fungible token. A recent thing that represents a digital item. Musk got an offer of his tweet for $1 million. Oh, I remember about that. Yeah, he was saying he was selling a tweet, wasn't he? Or something. His first tweet. I remember that. We've got 500 Delta V left on this stage, which is pretty good. Let's get over here. Let's go for fine-tune closest approach. 30k. See how much fuel, when we get near, we'll see how much fuel it'll take to circularize. See how much of the current stage we can use. Ivan, thank you for gifting us up to Kerbal Scuffed Program 0. Whatever that is. My Sim Life, how you doing? You're not late. You get to turn up whenever you want to. That's your contract as a viewer. You don't have to be there on time. You can turn up whenever you want. That's the beauty of it. I have to be on time. That's different. Right, slow this down. So we've got a rubbish periapse again. So we'll change that back to 30. Wait, what? That periapse is below, and yet fine-tune closest approach. Oh, it's meters now. Oh, stupid thing. That always catches me. It changes it from kilometers to meters. Must select a target for the course correction. What? Alright, change periapse. We'll do it another way. 30k. Go. I think we should have put a reaction wheel in this. The tiny reaction wheel up here is not really working for this right now. Also, the power's coming down quite a bit because the reaction wheel's draining it. Can extend them if we get desperate. Waiting. One orbit is hyperbolic, so apoapsis doesn't exist. Remove nodes. 10 seconds. Go. Get on with it. 11 Delta V. Why don't you wear a mask? Okay, boom. I'm not required to wear a mask in my own home. Change, let's see, circularize at the next periapse. Go. 264. Right, so we've still got Delta V left, potentially for a polar inclination. Well, that's true, Sammy. I'm in space. I don't need a mask. But the mic will get sick. Let's turn that question around, Abhinav. Tell me why I should wear a mask at home in a studio on my own. You tell me why I should wear a mask, and then I'll tell you why I don't need to. Right, circular orbit achieved. Nice. Right, how do we get this thing to... I want to change the inclination, don't we? Change surface longitude. No. Which is the right option to change to a polar orbit? Change longitude of ascending node. Match planes with target, match velocities. Resonant return, transfer. Is there a different one maybe? Inclination. Oh yeah, change inclination. Gone blind. New inclination 90 degrees. So that would do that. That would be 747 delta V. Okay, so that's more delta V than we have at this stage. So I think what we'll have to do is, because I still need a bit of delta V just to deorbit that back into the moon, because I don't want it hanging around in orbit. So let's see if we can get away with 20 degrees. If we change 20 degrees, it'll save us, it'll leave us with about 20 delta V. Is that going to be enough to deorbit, do you reckon? There's no atmosphere, so we have to be able to go straight into the ground. You really want to change the inclination before you circularize. A bit late for that. Bit late for that. Well, if we haven't got enough delta V, we'll just have to abort mission. Armin, we're basically putting a probe into a polar orbit around the moon so we can scan the surface and look for where the ore is. That's what we're trying to do. Newty. Doesn't time fly when you're having fun? Thank you for 67 months, Mr. Newty. Right then, so we want final separation, don't we? And then if I change to that and point retrograde. Hey, Klaus.
Good evening, Paul and the Nut House.